yeah, tonight is not a night for quad destruction, but more so the opposite, right? Rather than pressing a bit more posterior chain work. But my version of posterior chain work basically ends at hamstrings. I don't need bigger glutes. I don't need thicker erectors, which is your lower back that makes up that kind of Christmas tree look. So really, apart from quads, what I'm working from the waist down is going to be hamstrings, adductors, and calves. So adductor, not abductor, which is just, I don't know, biceps, pecs, lats, triceps. Those muscles got pretty cool, simple, recognizable names. Even hamstrings, even though hamstring is kind of silly, that's still a good name. Calves, delts, like those are all pretty cool. Adductors and abductors, very specific. Not as many people are throwing that one out. Like how people say, "Oh man, I had an awesome quad day. I was working my I don't even know the quad muscle insertion names. At least not geez. There's a little spider up there. It's okay. But yeah, adductor and abductor, those are the two machines where you're either squeezing your legs together or pushing your legs apart. The pushing your legs apart one, very glute focused, kind of like side glute. I don't see the benefit for me based on what I want to do. I think manual glute work, depending on what your goals are, could be necessary. I think I see a huge benefit in power lifters doing manual glute work, especially for strength. But since I want to be aesthetically big, not necessarily functionally big, I can leave glutes off the table, right? It's just not that's not a lift that I have to really get into. Because for me to do leg press and squats, that's kind of enough for the glute development that I want. But yeah, in terms of the and then abductor, where I'm sitting spreading my legs apart, that doesn't have to be on my list either. But adductor, where you're squeezing your legs together, that one I would recommend twofold. For one, it's going to thicken up the inside of your legs, which to a point may become a little bit of an inconvenience. I know I've got to be very particular with what kind of swimsuits I wear, or maybe making sure that I have extra long, like that kind of nylon-y boxer brief kind of thing, because I've had some pretty bad chafing incidents. And of course, the bigger you get, the worse that would be, where your legs are rubbing together. Right? It's just not good. So having thicker adductors, that's gonna kind of be part of that. But the benefit is, well, your legs are thicker from the front. Like if you sit and you do in a standing shot, maybe you're doing a double bicep or a lat spread, you want to kind of put your legs in a stance where you have your toes turned out and you're thickening them up side to side as much as possible. So if you have zero adductor development, then your legs kind of they're kind of empty in the middle, but if they're thick enough, you get that kind of round inner quad look, right? But beyond just visually, having strong semi-developed adductors is really good in terms of stabilization for any other pressing you get into. Not as necessary for leg press, but I mean really any shoulder loaded press, Smith squats, barbell squats, hacks, pendulums, your adductors come into play a lot more than you think. Your hamstrings sometimes not as much. If you do heel elevated squats, you don't get a ton of hamstring. You get some, but not a ton. Leg press, you get a bit. But adductors, in terms of that Smith squat, barbell squat, they come into play a ton. If you've got at least with my style, where I want my knees out a little bit, heels semi close together, within a foot apart, the adductors come into play. And I've squatted very heavy without doing any adductor work, and I just tweak it, because it's like you wanted to what's a good example? I don't know. They're a very strong secondary muscle that gets activated during those movements. So you want to make sure that it's, you know, ready and can handle it. So that's what today is going to focus on: hamstrings and adductors, and a touch of calves just to get them pumped. And this is kind of not as fun, but now that I'm dieting, I'm not growing. Like, there's no hypertrophy going on, at least not much to be seen. Maybe a little, but nothing that I would notice. Like, I'm not going to sit here and even think that over the course of the next 4 months or however many months left I'm going to stay extra lean, that, like, okay, if I really get after it, you know, my lats can grow a little and my biceps are going to grow an inch. Maybe a little, but not anything noticeable, because I'm you know, in a calorie deficit. I'm burning body fat. So growth is kind of on it's, you know, that's just not first on the agenda when it comes to, you know, my internal kind of system. But what I do want out of my training is that muscle maintenance and strength maintenance. All right, as long as I keep, you know, hitting the same weights relatively, getting blood flow, getting continual activation, then that's given me enough of a trigger to say, all right, let's not burn this muscle for energy. Clearly we need this shit. And then burn body fat on the outside, right? That's the point. And then, you know, fast forward a couple months, once I say, all right, let's start bulking up again, that's where I'll have enough food and energy and resources internally to say, you know what? Let's start building, right? It's like, think about it internally like I'm a building. I'm a building and a business. So if we had a good enough quarter and there's enough energy and funds, well, then guess what? You've got discretionary funds to start growing, right? And branching out and having a sister location, things like that. But times are getting tight. You might have to downsize. So where are you going to downsize from? That's where I want to make sure that the only internal resource that I'm pulling from for energy is body fat. So that's that's where I no longer have to do the stack every time I do a leg curl or an adductor or anything else like that, because, you know, it doesn't sound as cool, of course, but I just don't need to go that heavy to achieve the goal that I want right now, which is just maintenance as I get cut up. So right now I'm still I'm in the second phase past the honeymoon phase of dieting. So what I mean by that is, you know, in October, or no, what am I saying, October? In, what would it be, July? Did I start this in July? It would have been late July, but yeah, late July is when I started to diet down. So from basically February up to July, I had eaten enough food where by July, I was sick of it. So now, or, you know, right when I started, holy crap, I don't have to force food anymore. Nice. So the first few weeks of that diet, super freaking easy. I'm getting to the point now where, okay, I'm really making sure I eat in a specific way, you know, calories per hour wise, so that I don't blow my deficit and I stay on course. But over the next few months, the difficulty outside the gym in terms of like sticking to my diet, really being consistent, no cheat days, no scrappy meals, like everything very routine, that's going to get harder and harder and harder. Right? That's the difficulty factor. So the lifts, they're going to be pretty solid. Like my workouts don't really change in terms of quality, but yeah, the added difficulty of this dieting phase will begin to show itself over time. So I'm going to enjoy it now while it still doesn't feel too crazy. Like, I still feel pretty carbed up. Like, I think I had 200 grams of carbs so far today. And that's not nothing. Like, that's, once I get down to, like, you know, well, actually, I don't get that low. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I could not tell you exactly what my weekly calorie intake is going to be by February. But so far, up around that 3,000 mark, still gradually getting lighter. So we're good. So I'm going to ride 3,000-ish until it starts to slow down. I'm not losing any more weight. 2,800. Or maybe I'll go down by 100 calories. I think that'd be a little better. Do it even slower. So 2,900, 2,800. You know, and kind of creep down like that. Because I still want to eat. You know, I want to keep burning through food. That's why I think it's kind of weird, like, the idea and the logic behind, like, everybody's talking about retatrutide, which is basically like a kind of a faction of the Ozempic family of stuff, which is just like, if it really was as simple as it reduces that impulse of hunger, well, then that'd be perfect, right? But it's, you know, I'm not an exercise scientist, so I don't know the exact process. But from what I know, the gist is it just slows down your whole metabolic process. Where if I eat, you know, let's say I eat a meal of ground beef and oatmeal, and it takes, I don't know, how many hours does a meal take to pass through a person? Maybe 8 hours, maybe whatever. Any of the GLP-1s, it like crashes that, or it doubles that time, so it just like moves through you at half speed. Like it just seems kind of funky. Like, I don't know, like I want to keep churning through food. That's why I keep adding in cardio and keeping my energy exertion up, because then it allows me to eat more food. Like, it, even if you don't want to track calories, even if you didn't want to deal with calorie counting and whatever, if you had a daily routine, let's say you take Saturday and Sunday off even, but if you had a daily routine of 30 minutes of cardio in the morning and then a hard workout at night, it doesn't even have to be a bodybuilding workout, but just a hard lift, well then guess what? You're setting yourself up for a better overall body fat situation, because you're burning more energy than the average dude. So in turn, that means you get to eat more food than the average dude. Right? So if you eat the same food as somebody else, and maybe he's not in awesome shape, but he doesn't work out at all, maybe you can eat the same meals and, you know, you're gonna have a very different result if you, let's just say, are breaking the sweat on the regular. You know, that's why when guys talk about how you can like outwork a bad diet, you know, if you're looking at it in the context of can you eat, you know, what we kind of conventionally call junk food and still be lean, well, I mean, if you're working out hard enough and you don't eat too many calories worth of it, well then yeah, right? You know, is it the most optimal situation for muscle growth? You know, maybe not, but all I'm trying to get at there is if you can up your game energy exertion wise, you don't have to be so strict dieting wise, because you got to burn through that energy anyway. Like, I want to be like an oven. I want to be burning through as much energy as possible, and then I won't have to, you know, basically starve myself as I diet down. I can still eat, right? So that's my thoughts there. But yeah, I don't expect it to be very busy. Monday night, 7 o'clock, Planet Fitness. Should be totally dead, honestly. So I'm pretty sure I won't have to wait for any kind of hamstring curl or adductor machine. When was the last time I was in Planet Fitness? I feel like it's been weeks. I think as this diet progresses and I start to really feel more like I'm in prep and I'm like, okay, we're really getting serious, I'm probably gonna end up being in the private gym almost exclusively, just because I'll like the alone factor. Like when I'm bulking up, I like being in a more lively gym, like everybody's running around getting after it. It's just like more fun. But the workouts do feel a little more difficult once you start getting in this, you know, high to medium single-digit body fat numbers. You know, there's only so much caffeine you can throw in the mix to get yourself as amped. But now let's get in there, see if I recognize anybody, and get my freaking hamstrings pumped. I do not remember this stack being so heavy, so let's go 2 notches lighter and just start with a straight set. Maybe 2 straight heavy sets, and then I could cut the weight in half and then just do slow squeezing, holding, burning reps for the next few sets. I think that's what I'll do, but let's finish the first 2 first. Oh, yeah. Okay, one more notch. Oh, okay. One more like that. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Weight-wise, that didn't feel too heavy, but it definitely was because I only got freaking 5 real reps. Yeah, let's drop that to 80, not 90, and do some squeezing, holding ones. This is what I reference when I say I'm lacking muscular endurance, because I could do way more reps on that first set. Like when I'm bulked up, dude, I could throw 315 around on Smith for like 5 sets, all similar weight ranges. That's what happens when you're not eating 1,000 grams of carbs per day. And that's okay, because that's in exchange for getting cut up and diced. But yeah, let's lighten it up. I'm using the 0.5 camera angle to make my legs look bigger than they really are. But yeah, this will be good. And what I'm really aiming for is a nasty, nasty burn at the top. So when I'm actually sitting here holding the weight up, like I want it to feel, well, just crazy. Just crazy is what I'm aiming for. Holy crap. Just feeling my hamstrings right now. I think I'll just do one more. So that's only what? I mean, was that 3 heavy ones and then 2 light squeezing ones? These squeezing ones they're burning, so they're extra tricky. But, you know, this might not exactly be the lift to emulate in terms of new muscle production. Like, take that into account. Usually, like, I stand behind my bulking workouts. Like, if it's a bulking series or a gain weight, you know, time frame of year, those workouts are much more complete in the sense that for hamstrings, a bit more hip hinging, different curls. But when I'm dieting down just to stimulate, or if you're dieting down and you just need to hit your targeted muscle, simpler is not worse. Simpler is not a problem. Like, I did a chest day where I did 1 set incline bench, and then the rest was just squeezing cable presses bent over. And, you know, that's not a workout I would do when I'm bulking up, because I can recover and I can really push it work-wise. But dieting down, as long as my diet and my cardio are on point, I need a pump, I need to go hard, but I don't need to overdo it. And if anything, that might actually push me into, you know, I don't want to say overtraining, but more so under recovering. But yeah, I think only one more is necessary. Even just sitting down, my hamstrings are freaking cooked right now. So yeah, this one more, and then I'll go camp out at the adductor machine, and we'll be close to done. All right. I'll go 1 notch heavier, just because I had an extra long rest period just now. Oh my gosh. All right, yeah, that's enough for hamstrings for today. Let's go do some adductors. All right, yeah, a little bit of a quicker lift than normal. Planet Fitness, you know, you can throw down an arm pose down, even back and chest is cool, but I don't think it's not the right environment to bust out the, you know, drop the pants and then do a side chest and try to get your hamstring out. Not exactly there. And then that back section with all the leg equipment, like the adductor and abductor stuff, it's pretty packed over there. So have some discretion. You know, if you're trying to post some stuff or record your workouts, you know, it's best practice not to really clip anybody. Like I try not to, it's kind of subtle, but I try not to get anybody like directly in frame or anything. Like it's, you know, it's just annoying. You're already kind of doing too much by bringing the camera in. So the subtler you can be, the better, right? That's my rule of thumb. Or, you know, if the place is like, look man, no tripods, bro, right, you gotta respect it. Not that should even be the point. The point should be your workout. But if you're trying to double up the two, you know, you're the one kind of invading in that sense. So just keep that in mind, right? Or just, you know, fill up rental space with equipment, then you don't have to worry about it. But that's not necessarily so feasible. But yeah, so all I finished with after those hamstring curls was adductors. I don't remember how many sets I did. I just did this, so not the stack because like, oh, let's do the stack, but just because that's, you know, a hefty chunk, and I probably could have done a little bit more, but the stack on an adductor is enough. So I warmed up, and then I just did 15 rep sets, kind of just for as many as I could do. Did like 8 or 9 or so, just kind of playing on my phone in between. But it was kind of busy over there, so just, you know, do those sets solo. But walking out of the gym, even just standing up from that from the piece of equipment and then walking, I feel like a cowboy. Like even now, the inside of my thighs are substantially more swollen than they were driving here pumpless. So what that tells me is I got some solid ass activation. And you can kind of, you know, you can kind of change it up with the adductor. You can, and this is like the same thing with a Smith's bench or like a machine press or anything. Like if the movement path is already set, like the bar is going here to here or the thing's going here to here, you can add your own extra leverages by either pushing up or down. So for some of those sets, I was kind of pulling my knees up a little bit. Like instead of just pushing together, I was pushing a little bit in and up, and I could feel kind of like some upper adductor going. Not exactly hip flexor, but just kind of in there. And then for a few, I'd kind of push down a little more, where I was like kind of pushing into my heels, and I could feel kind of some lower stuff going on. So something to think about, you know? Instead of just, you know, jumping onto a piece of equipment and going, like there should be a good relay of information of, obviously, like, okay, go hard, really squeeze, activate, but also how are you activating, right? Like if I'm doing a chest press, some chest presses are easier than this for others, or than others, but I really want to feel my like upper chest tie in all the way at the top of my collarbone, like pull my arm in, not as though I'm just pushing with my palm. Like that's level 1 like cognitive perception of how you're moving the weight, right? Pushing with your hands. Well, you're not really pushing with your hands, right? If you dig it all the way back to base, then you're really pulling your arm forward with your chest, right? Or during hamstrings. I'm not pushing the weight up with my heels or my ankles. I'm pulling it up from the back of my knees. And with the adductor, I'm not just pushing with my knees, I'm pulling from the inside of my waist, right? That kind of groinish area. So I think that's where, when we talk like mind-muscle connection, I think it's almost just as important, or at least a little bit important, to, you know, have a good imagination of, I guess, what you could call your mind-muscle perception, right? Because, you know, if it's like when someone says they can't feel their back during a pull down, right? That's not a that's not a stupid thing to say, because let's say the guy isn't using straps, he's not visualizing like pulling and stretching with his shoulder blade. If he's just pulling down, then odds are the guy could be using a ton of biceps and forearm and not really be activating his lats like he wants to. So instead of a deep pull, he's kind of like doing a shruggy sort of pull, right? So that's where having at least a decent, like, a mental image of what's going on can help you kind of bring your sets a little bit further forward, or a little bit, just better, because you can like directly send the signals where they need to go, right? It's like you've got better control over your muscle. And I know that's like obvious, but just think about it next time. Like next time, sometimes I think machines make it easier, but sometimes, free weights are good too. Like the first time I ever really felt my chest like pulling the weight up instead of just pushing with my hands, I was in my basement doing incline bench, and it helped that I had a mirror right in front of my setup so I could actually see myself doing it. And it was like, it's like a freaking eureka moment. For biceps, I remember it was on a Life Fitness cable preacher, where it's like seat here, preacher bench right here, and then 2 individual cables right in front of you with a stack. And then you reach down and you grab a cable. You could do both at once, but I think one was the best. And you'd pull into the curl. And something about that version and that machine really let me kind of like feel myself pulling with my bicep, not just like pulling with my hand, if you kind of feel me. So, just try to think about it a little more. If you're not already, because I promise it's gonna result in better reps, better sets, better workouts, better gains, better enjoyment, and then it just is a positive feedback loop going upward. Like on leg extensions, if you can get into it, I think it doesn't feel like you're pushing with your foot. It's more like you're pulling your leg up. Like that's kind of an obvious one. I think everybody can squeeze their quad on a leg extension. But just, try to go through that mental image during a warm-up or during anything, and just get a good grasp of how things are moving. Like I'm not was I talking about like the names of specific muscle groups on the way here? I'm pretty sure I was. That is a really good way to look at it. Like if you can just like look up an anatomy chart, or if you've got an older gym, sometimes they still have old posters from like the early 2000s where it's like, just a full shot of like an anatomy of like pecs, arms, shoulders, forearms, calves, everything. And then each muscle is highlighted specifically with like different movements on the side. But if you just look at that, there's like the way everything is moving, like there's nothing in your body that pushes. There is no pushing, it's only pulling. Like muscle has no ability to push. All its ability to do is contract. So, right, if you're in a leg extension, your quad is contracting in to exert weight out. Running through some construction over here. Your chest is contracting to pull your arm in. Your side delts are contracting to lift the dumbbell up to the side. Your triceps are contracting, like not to say contracting a million times, to push your hand down into a push down, So if you can visualize that at least semi-clearly in your mind, then I think you're set up to at least have, better mind-muscle connection. And that's the whole point. That's what we're always talking about. Being able to get more out of lighter weight, being able to get more out of whatever, or more at a heavier weight, where you can actually recruit more fibers and hit the muscle where you want it. If I'm doing a row, I don't want to feel it in my forearms. I don't want to feel it in my biceps. I only want to feel it in my back and traps and maybe a little bit of rear delt and everything going on over there, right? So that's like half the point of bodybuilding training anyway, is you want it to be very directly targeted for whatever muscle you're specifically going for. Right? So if I'm leaving a hamstring day, hamstrings and adductors like today, I don't want anything else to feel like it's being worked. I don't want anything else to feel tired or activated. Like I'm here for hamstrings, and that's all. So let's try not to swerve anywhere. This particular like bridge intersection in my town has had all sorts of construction going on for like 3 freaking years. When I worked for the city, one of my bosses was telling me this story where some guy somewhere along the chain ordered the wrong kind of concrete. Like it was, I don't know do you order, I forget how concrete works. Like do you order a number 4 or like a number 6 or something. Basically, like it's explaining how wet or dry the concrete is, and like this dude somehow wrong concrete, and they had to rip up like tons out of the ground and totally redo it. Like just a huge freaking tax dollar flop. But yeah, certainly not a flop with that lift. I can guarantee I'm gonna feel my hamstrings tomorrow. Maybe, goodness, maybe to the point where I might want to do the treadmill instead of the seated bike, because I'm gonna feel my hamstrings so much. And if that's the case, well, so be it, right? I'm not gonna let any kind of soreness get in the way of my 30 minutes, or maybe not my 30 minutes, but my 300 calories. So, you know, if I did the treadmill instead of the bike, I'd probably do 45 minutes instead of the 30, so that I could still hit my 300 calorie goal. You know, like a 5% incline, 3.5 miles an hour, something like that. But that's for tomorrow. That's for me to deal with tomorrow in the morning. So for now, I'm gonna go eat something, shower off, and then get tuckered into bed. And well, let's just say I may or may not have stopped at the animal shelter a few days ago, and, you know, purely with the intent to check out all the cats and just pet on them and, you know, see who's who. Like that's you know, I was hyping up being a regular at your gym in town, because then you get to see if you go to like, I know this sounds silly, but if you go to an animal shelter long enough, sometimes people get a cat and then they return it, and it's like, why did Ringcart get adopted? This was like a really cute little kitten, you know, like 5 months old, but he was kind of small for his size. And you know, I saw him a couple times, and then he got adopted, he wasn't there, and then I saw him again, he came back, and, you know, I asked one of the people there, like, what happened? And the guy who adopted him was like, he always wants to pet on him, like he always wants to be next to me, he's like following me around the house, like as if that's a bad thing. Like what, he's too loving? Like I don't understand. But I think I think someone else adopted him, so hopefully he's back in a good home. But I may or may not have came home with a tiny little 3-month-old kind of fluffy little critter. Well, I may or may not have a new critter in the addition, which, well, let's just say I'll keep you updated on. So I'm sure I'll have a, you know, bring your kid to work day kind of deal, where I bring 1 or 2 of the cats to the gym with me. But I don't know, they don't like the car. Like, they're not like Blue. They're not like the dog, where he likes going places. Like the cats want to be chill. They just want to hang out. They want to just sit in the sun. So it's kind of best not to bother them like that. Unless you've got like an adventure cat. Like, you ever see the videos where guys, like they'll have a cat on a harness, and like they're bringing the cat on a hike, or like kayaking. Yeah, I don't think any of my cats wants to go kayaking. Like, they want to just chill out. But yeah, that's so that's pretty fun for me. But yeah, I'm gonna go eat something, and then the plan is chest tomorrow. But last chest day a couple days ago, I felt a little just tight all around up here. So I've been saying that I might do a rest day like the last like 3 or 4 days. Tomorrow might be it. I get so this is some feedback I'd actually like. I get curious about throwing some live streams in the mix, like live stream Q&A, like live stream something or other, like just like in the gym. But I don't want it to be, you know, I'll see. And then you got to get you need a moderator, or you have to like really sit in the chat for a while, because like people comment like just like the comments on live streams are terrible. So you actually need somebody in there like actively banning people who are trying to troll you. So, you know, that kind of makes it a little trickier. Maybe I can just turn on like really high level comment moderation, so that, you know, nobody says anything freaking heinous. But yeah, that's on the agenda. You know, I'll throw some of those in sometimes. I think it'd be kind of fun, especially now that I got Wi-Fi in the gym. So who knows? Maybe that could be the first YouTube streamed Sam workout. Oh, what do you think about that? Yeah, we'll see. That'll be for another day, though, not today. So I'll see you for whatever tomorrow brings.